that was the most ghastly, painful, and transformatively beautiful experience of my life, working on those two books, Hummingbird and Queen of America, because you know, this woman is an icon in Mexico, but a bit of a forgotten icon. She's a proto-feminist indigenous leader, and she plied her trade right before the Mexican Revolution, and when the Mexican Revolution happened, her story was kicked out of history and forgotten. And partially because she was indigenous, and partially because she was female. The male historians in Mexico just discounted her. And I had heard these stories my whole life. I grew up in this household with very powerful women in Tijuana, and many of them were storytellers, and they would tell me these crazy stories about your aunt. You have an Indian aunt, yeah, an Indian, yeah, she could heal the sick. I'd say, wow, that's cool. Yeah, she could raise the dead too. I'd say, what? You know? And then he goes, yeah, did you know your aunt could fly? I'd say, wow. But they also, you know, told me crazy stories like, you know, in the closet where I keep my girdle, Satan lives there, so don't go messing around. So, you know, you get to a certain age when you just think everything is just crazy myth, and then I started discovering that she'd actually lived. And I put in 20 years to research the first book. Both books together took 26 years. Over 10 years studying with medicine women and shamans. Talk about a Western experience. And, you know, that was just mind-boggling. But the first book, people ask me, why didn't you just do a big, giant Mishnah book? And I say, it is a big, giant Mishnah book, but we split it in half because I think it would simply kill readers. It's way too much. Her life is broken up in two clear parts. The first half of her life was in Mexico learning the technology of the sacred and becoming this saint. Then she's expelled from Mexico and comes to the United States and becomes Lady Gaga. She's all of a sudden a celebrity. What? You know, photographed, and thousands of fans and autographs and tours around America. And, you know, she goes from being a barefoot, illegitimate child, a slave's child on a hacienda, to being a woman who's hanging with the Vanderbilts here in New York City, and Gibson Girl full. The journey is mind-boggling to me. And when I was thinking about this, and we used to, sometimes we have a little, I don't know if Jeff even remembers this, but he mentioned Devil's Highway, Perfect Storm. There was a little point where we used to call it the Perfect Dust Storm. I don't know if you remember that. And when I was working on these books, I always thought of Hummingbird. I used to tell him, it's Lonesome Dove with miracles. I said, but the hard part is the second book is Ragtime with miracles. How do you write that? And she came to the United States, but I realized at a certain point that it's almost like a science fiction novel. This person comes from this agricultural planet, and she gets on a spaceship, which is a steam locomotive, and lands on this futuristic planet. It's got automobiles and electric lights and movies and hot air balloons. And she had to adjust to two worlds. And so when she got here, she has to deal with how do you still stay true to your medicine training and your sacredness in this place, where almost everything to her is a miracle and astonishing.